Hello and welcome, you beautiful bookish people. It is time for my end of the year book tag. It is time to look over everything that I read this year, for me to tell you my favorites, my least favorites, some unexpected reads, all of that good stuff. I have loads of questions to go through with you today, so let's get started. Now, this first question is simple in theory, but I had to think for so long about this answer, and I'm still kind of going back and forth about it right now. But the question is, what was my favorite read of the entire year? And I'm gonna have to say it's The Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. I read it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. It was exactly what I look for in romantasy fantasy. It's kind of like a dark fantasy though. It's kind of, how do I explain this? Bottom line, I loved it so much. It has a morally gray female main character. Like our main character, she is the morally gray one, which you don't see that really in romantasy books nowadays. I feel like most of the time it's the male main characters, which he's morally gray too, but like she's more so. Oh, it's so interesting. I love these characters. The first book is dual POV. The second book has so many POVs. The third one, I'm in the middle of the third one right now, and oh my god, it's expanded crazily. No, that's not a word. It's expanded so many POVs. I can't explain to you how much I have latched onto these characters, how much I care about their story. Our female main character, Diana, is messy, and it is true enemies to lovers. Like, they try to kill each other multiple times in the first book. It is so good. Now, the worst book of the year that I read, I'm not gonna include any of my DNFs because I feel like that's not fair since I didn't finish the book, but there was one book that I read this year that it was also the most disappointing read, but my worst book of the entire year is Fearless by Lauren Roberts. Hey, I know so many of you love Powerless, you love Lauren Roberts, and that's fantastic. I did like Powerless, I kind of liked Reckless, and then Fearless just threw it out of the window for me. I was really, really uncomfortable with like the family tree stuff going on, which this is the third book in a series, so I can't exactly tell you too much about it, but I feel like the plot was just a repeat of the first book. It gave nothing new, no really good insights. The romance was just bland because it felt, like I said, it's repetitive, and the way that it ended made me so angry. And I don't think it was for me. I know so many people on my videos comment, they're like, what about Powerless? What about Powerless? I'm like, guys, shh, not for me. Now, this next question is a book I didn't expect to not like, but I didn't like it. I'm gonna have to say In the Veins of the Drowning. I read this last month, I believe, and I was so in the mood for it, and I was so disappointed because I had just read Fallen Stars by Imani Ariu, and that one kind of made me crave a sea mermaid siren, like nautical fantasy. And so I picked up In the Veins of the Drowning because I've heard phenomenal. I have not heard a single person say that it's a bad book. Every single person that I've seen so far has loved this book, so I don't know if I was just like, it didn't deliver on something that I was really in the mood for. I don't know. But In the Veins of the Drowning, it was a siren fantasy, and I just thought it was predictable, boring, cliche. I didn't like the characters, and the problem with me is if I don't like the characters, I'm not gonna care about the story. Like, you can have, there's an argument whether character-driven or plot-driven is better, and I feel like in different situations, it could differ, but I feel like you kind of have to have both for me to love it. You can't have purely character-driven, you can't have purely plot-driven. I feel like there was a weird mix of the two. Is this making any sense? Bottom line, I didn't care for the characters, so if I don't care for the characters, I don't really care about their story, I don't really care about what they're doing. Yeah, it's just not for me. I wish I read the same book that everybody else did, but alas, I did not. Now, on the flip side of this, a book that I thought I would not like but ended up loving is Heir of Storms by Lauren Hamilton Murray. I've talked about this one maybe a little bit, I think. And this is a YA fantasy, and if you know me, you know that YA is very hit or miss. For me, I don't generally reach for it because I feel like a lot of YA books that I've picked up are very juvenile, read very simple in a bad way, and like too much of holding your hand, which I understand. If it's young adult, then it's like obviously the target audience is going to be a little bit younger, and I'm in my 20s, like I get that. But then again, there's like Six of Crows. Six of Crows is YA. Throne of Glass is technically YA. Like those are not hold your hand kind of simple books. But I picked up Heir of Storms because I heard good things about it and I saw it at the bookstore. I was wanting to buy a book, so I picked it up. And I ended up loving it. I listened to the audiobook, which I thought was phenomenal. I think the narrator was fantastic. And that might be part of why I loved it so much, but the story was so interesting and I really invested in these characters. I think it's not really like a revolutionary, like this is a completely fresh plot. Like there were trials, there was a fight for the throne, there's a little bit of romance in there. Like it's just, I think I was in the mood for it, and it was just a good YA romantasy, and I'm so glad that I read it when I did. Next question is, what is a book that I read that was hyped up that I didn't love, and a book that I read that was hyped up that I did love? Now let's start with the didn't love. I read Silver Elite by Dani Francis, and I did not understand the hype around this one. I say that with the very lightly, because I understand that it was just very tropey and like very cookie cutter and very just annoying because it was so stereotypical, and I did not like the romance. I thought it was so cringy. They had no chemistry, and I was so confused by it. I'm like, why is everybody loving this book so much? It's like a magical dystopian setting, which in theory sounds cool, but again, one of those where I predicted a few things. One thing, there was the fake death trope, which is my least favorite trope of all time. I cannot stand it when authors do a fake death. It had that in it. There was one line that I literally wrote in the book. I was like, is it too late to DNF? I was at like 88% or something crazy. And I read this line. It was just a really cringy romance spicy line, and I could not do it, and I kind of hate finished it. I read it as part of like Can You Trust Book Talk Recommendations video, which I have up on my channel, which was so much fun because the other book that I read I really enjoyed called Shield of Sparrows, because that one was really hyped up too, and I liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars. But I read Silver Elite because I was like, well, I'm reading this for a video, so I have to finish it. But at the end of the day, I just should have DNF'd. I can't understand it. I guess if you're just like hungry for very specific tropes and very overdone tropes, then like, man, go for it. But like, I just didn't like them as a couple. So moving on from that one, the other book that I read that I was hyped up that I loved was Alchemized by Senlin Yu. Now this book has been hyped up for so long because Manacled came out, I don't even know how long ago it was. I read it in January of this year as a fan fiction, a Dramini fan fiction, and it was getting traditionally published, and so I read it as like, oh my god, this is gonna be so good. Basically changed, like the bones of the story are the same, like the plot wise, but the world is different, the magic system is different, the characters are obviously different. And I loved this one so much. This was another one that I listened to the audiobook for. I tandem read some of it with the physical book and the audiobook, but I don't know how to describe the feelings that I got from reading that book, because it is so dark and so twisted that I feel like this one is not gonna be for everybody for sure. But because Manacled was so hyped and so loved, which I read Manacled and I loved it so much, and so at first I was like, well, I don't know if it's gonna be like feel like almost like a ripoff, but I mean, at the end of the day, I loved Manacled so much, and I'm like, I know I'm gonna love Alchemized, and I totally did. I devoured the book. It was like 1,000-something pages. I could have kept reading. It was that good. It was one of those where it's got like this bittersweet ending, like more bitter than sweet. Like it's one of those, I guess it was a good ending. It was the best case scenario for what happened, but the reality of their situation was just absolutely tragic. It is a very tragic book. Definitely check your trigger warnings and be cautious when you're going into this one. But I loved it so much, and it is hyped for a reason, and I'm so glad people love it. A book that I wish more people talked about is going to be Silver Cloak by L.K. Stephen. Now, I know I've heard a little bit about this, but not nearly enough. This book was so unique. The magic system was, okay, it's not revolutionary because it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Harry Potter-esque. It's like an adult Harry Potter. You have wands, you have spells, you have the whole 9 yards there. But the way that it was presented in this, it was sort of like magical mafia, but there's an academy, but there's like almost an element of science fiction in it with time weaving. It's what it's called, is basically like messing with timelines, and it's a specific type of magic in this realm. And I ate it up. I thought it was so refreshing. It was fast paced. I loved the crumb of romance we got because it was more like the male main character that the female main character was kind of falling for. He was so broody and mean and like morally gray to the extent that it's almost borderline. It's not too much, but it's a lot. And because he was the kingpin son of like basically this magical mafia, I'm just gonna go on and on about this, I guess. I thought it was so much fun. It wasn't a 5-star read for me. It wasn't absolutely perfect because it didn't have the fake death trope, but it kind of did. But I loved the story so much that I was like, this is one instance where I'm like, it bothers me, but I can overlook it because the story is so good. I'm very excited for where this next book is gonna go. I have no idea when it's coming out, but I wish more people picked it up, and I think you totally should. A book that changed my reading taste was Fallen Stars by Imani Ariu. Now, I just touched on this a little bit, how this book was very nautical, very sea-esque. That's not a term. I'm gonna make it a term. It made me want to read about pirates, and I have not read anything like this book, and it made me want to explore more in that sea, mermaid, siren, pirate kind of realm, and I still need to go read more. That's why I picked up In the Veins of the Drowning, because I thought it was gonna scratch that itch, but maybe In the Veins of the Drowning just wasn't the type that I was really looking for. But anyways, I feel like it changed my reading taste in the sense that it was a romantasy, but it made me want to find more fantasy, romantasy that kind of turns into epic or higher fantasy. And Heavenly Bodies, one of my favorite reads of the entire year. I read it back in January, reread it before Fallen Stars. Absolutely loved it so much. It is the definition of romantasy, but I feel like it kind of branched out in the second book, and it kind of gave me more like, oh my god, there's actually this big war coming. We're gonna get battles, we're gonna get conflict, and I love that when there's like this huge buildup of the story seemingly down here, but in reality, once we get all the information and once all the politics play out, it's gonna be up here, if that makes any sense at all. It made me want to explore more, and I feel like that counts as changing my taste, because I feel like even though Pirates of the Caribbean is one of my favorite films of all time, made me who I am today, love it so much. I don't know why, but I never gravitated towards those kinds of stories, so I don't know, I guess I can explore more in 2026. Now, a book that I devoured in one sitting is The Reaper by Rue Nix, which is actually the sequel to The Predator by Rue Nix. I read this as sort of a palate cleanser because this is a mafia romance, and I don't read contemporary romance, I don't read modern stuff really at all, except for mafia books. And this one, I loved The Predator so much, and I think I read it in a How Much Can I Read in a Week vlog, I'm pretty sure, and I wasn't intending to binge it. It wasn't super, I think it was like a little bit less than 300 pages, so it's not like it was like a huge book, but anyways, I still read it in one sitting. I loved it so much because these characters are so juicy. The romance is so good. I just like mafia romance. I don't know why. It really hits the spot for me, and I'm really glad that I just decided to binge it because it was exactly what I needed. The book that made me cry the most this year is gonna have to be Lady of Starfire by Melissa K. Roerick, which is the 5th book in the Lady of Darkness series. Now, it wasn't necessarily like a sad book, although, okay, Alchemized I feel like could be added to this list as well. I was sobbing like a baby, but Lady of Starfire, since it was the conclusion of the series, it kind of was like a bittersweet ending, and something happened that it was so heartwarming. Like something really sad happened, and then something really heartwarming happened because of the sad thing. I can't tell you what it is because that's a spoiler, but I just could not get enough of these characters. I love them so much, and the end. Oh, I'm thinking about it right now. It's so sweet. And this is so interesting because I like crying in books. That's just a tidbit about me. I like books that make me cry. I like to feel something. But this book was different because there are very rarely happy tears in books that I read. But these ones were happy tears, and it almost kind of turned into sad tears because I was like, oh, the story's over. Like, this is it. This is all I get. I guess I just didn't want to leave the universe. I thought it's one of my favorite series of all time. Of course it made me cry. Of course I was sad to leave it. So it's not one that I'm going to say, like, be prepared, it's so sad. But, like, just know that if you attach to these characters, this ending is going to be, like, stab you in the heart. My favorite cover of the year. Now, it's... I want to say that it's one of my Fairy Loot books, but I feel like that's kind of cheating because those are special editions. But my favorite regular cover is gonna be The Wind Weaver by Julie Johnson. And this one, I enjoyed this book so much. I actually am gonna start the Sea Spinner, which is the second book, very soon. It comes out in April, but I have an arc for it and I'm really excited for it. But anyways, The Wind Weaver's cover is this like beautiful red and orange phoenix bird looking fox thingy. Fox? Never mind. I don't know why I said that. I guess the red kind of reminds me of the fox. I don't know. But the Wind Weaver, oh, I wish all covers were like this. It's colorful, it's artistic, it's attention grabbing, it's not just text on a page. I think it's so good. And the Sea Spinner cover is like, it's so complimentary. They work together so freaking well. I love them so much. I cannot wait to see like the whole series all together. I think it's just gonna be the most gorgeous covers, which I actually need to go buy the regular covers because I only have the Fairy Loot edition, which the naked hardcover of the Fairy Loot edition is so stunning. It's got an artwork on it with like foil in it. Is love it. Now, at first I was gonna do a prompt that was my favorite character of the entire year, but I cannot choose. I physically cannot tell you one that trumps some. Okay, maybe a Darien Castle. Okay, Darien's on this list. Darien Castle reminds me so much of my husband. His kind of like responses to Loren and some of the things he says and does, it reminds me of my husband so much. It's kind of freaky. And so naturally, he's gonna be my favorite character because it's basically my husband. My book husband is basically my real husband. That's so fun to say. Anyways, I'm gonna go through my list, okay? We have Cameron from Gods and Monsters, Cyrus from Lady of Darkness, Scarlet from Lady of Darkness, Darien, like I said, Diana from Gods and Monsters, Razek from Lady of Darkness, which I feel like we only got a little bit of crumbs for Razek, but we're getting another Razek book. I'm so excited for that. And Maylin from The Night Ends with Fire. Those I feel like, oh, but then you have like Tessa from the Legacy series. Oh, guys, it's so hard to choose. But okay, those ones I feel like kind of sum it up well. I feel like Cameron and Cyrus would be best friends too. I feel like they're kind of similar. But anyways, these characters are just my favorites. They're funny. They're lovable. Some of them are very, very complicated. Some of them are very morally gray, which I love. I just think that if they walked into the room right now, I wouldn't do anything but just give them a long hug because I love them so much. I wouldn't know what to do with myself because I'm like, oh my God, you're here. I love you so much. I hope you're okay. I'm so glad you're alive. I want to be your best friend. Please and thank you. A new favorite author that I found this year is Melissa K. Roerick. I know I talk about her books all the time, and I'm never gonna shut up about them because they're so good. I read Lady of Darkness series this year. I read the Legacy series this year, starting with Reign of Shadows and Endings, and they're both completed now, which again is so bittersweet, but she has, I think, six or seven more series in the Chaos Verse, in like the same universe as Lady of Darkness and the Legacy series that are coming. And the Avonlea series is starting February, starting with Tortured Souls, which is the Razik book that I was talking about. And I love the way that she writes, and it's a blend of like snarky, it's not modern, so like there's not modern language in it, thank God, but it's so easy to read, so bingeable. She knows her characters so well, so inside and out. She knows how to write a good character, and I think because I connected with Scarlet so early on, it's just, I think that's so impressive when an author can just immediately latch you onto a character. And I know a lot of people say that Tessa from the Legacy series is hard to read, which I think that's the point, especially with everything that's gone on in her traumatic life. I feel like there's a reason that she is really complicated, and I don't want to say the most lovable because I love her so much, but she does things that are like questionable. I'm like, guys, that makes for a good plot. But anyways, I could go on and on about these characters, and I think the story is so meaningful, and if this makes any sense at all, it works together with the characters in a way that it stays true to them. Like, yes, there is this overarching plot, but it's also like these characters, their decisions are not influenced by like, if the author wants this certain plot to happen, sometimes it feels like the characters make decisions that aren't true to themselves because it has to stick with a plot or whatever, but no. This plot, I feel like, it makes sense because of what the characters do and how it impacts the story, and I could just reread them for the rest of time and be so content. A book that I would reread is City of Gods and Monsters by Kayla Edwards. And this one, I do plan to reread it. I think I want to reread it next year. I was gonna kind of wait a little bit closer to when the 5th book comes out, but I don't know the timeline on that because it just got picked up for traditional publishing, and I don't think it technically comes out until April or something crazy. Kind of early-ish next year, but anyways, usually if a series gets picked up for traditional publishing in the middle of like the series, it takes a while for the next books to come out, so I might just reread it for fun because it's been so long. It's been since, I read the first 3 in March, and I read City of Smoke and Brimstone when it came out in July. Like I said, Darian is one of my favorite characters ever, and these characters, there's so many morally gray ones because of the fact that when Loren kind of teams up with Darian after her friend gets kidnapped, they realize that Loren is the one that they wanted to kidnap all along. Darian is hired to take her in, but doesn't end up doing that. He ends up offering her protection. When they team up, okay, they team up with basically his family. There's found family, it is so good. They team up with his family, and they are a group of bounty hunters, but like they're kind of criminals. They're not criminals, but they're part of like this underworld crime syndicate, sort of like, not mafia, but like, I don't know how to explain it. Anyways, their family is so interesting. They make the most interesting decisions. I think the overarching plot is so big, and you don't know the scale of it in the first, but you really don't get like a touch of it in the first book. And it's multiple POV. There's, in the 3rd book, there's an introduction of these like multiple characters, a new introduction of this new couple that is so amazing. The romance, there's a couple different couples. The romance is fantastic, and it like builds and builds and builds as you go on. The 4th book was just crazy. It was non-stop. Like, the way that the 3rd book ended was crazy. And going into the 4th book, it was like, all right, there's some stuff that's about to go down. And I think I was like 50% of the, I have a reading vlog for this. I think I was like 50% of the way through. And I was sitting there like, it is not slowed down. And it is a beefy book. It's like 700-800 pages. It's not a small book. So like 300-400 pages of it were just go, go, go. And I think, see, I say Book of Azrael is my favorite of the year, but honestly, City of Gods and Monsters could probably be my favorite of the year. I don't know, there's just so many good, and oh my god, okay, that was technically the last question, but I want to get into some honorable mentions that I haven't mentioned this year, which I'm gonna do a video on my 10 top reads, but I have to mention this in this video too. If Book of Azrael wasn't in the picture and I had to choose a couple other ones, I would definitely choose either Lady of Darkness, City of Gods and Monsters, like I just said, or Daughter of No Worlds. I think that trilogy is beyond incredible. And also The Night and the Moth. I'm getting ahead of myself. I guess if you want more specifics, you're gonna have to stay tuned for next week for my top 10 reads of the entire year. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. That's all that I have for you today. I know this was kind of sit down chatty sort of video. These are so much fun to make, so easy to make, and I love just getting to talk about my favorite books with you. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you picked up some books for your TBR, and I will see you next time, my friends.